Welcome to VERSED, the ASCAP podcast. I'm your host, Eric Philbrook. Happy Earth Day, everyone. I hope you are all celebrating our precious planet today and giving it some much-needed TLC. I am so thrilled to share my conversation with this episode's special guest. As a frontman and guitarist for the beloved alternative pop rock band Guster, Adam Gardner has made a huge impact creating music for nearly 30 years that is abundant with equal parts heart, soul, innovation, and humor. Guster's deep relationship with its fans is a powerful testament to the band's love fest with creativity and community. It's also a blueprint for other artists on how to make that magical connection with an audience. Adam has long recognized the power of music to affect positive change. As a result, he has also made an incredible impact as co-founder of the environmental nonprofit Reverb. Since Reverb's launch in 2004, Adam has been advising and empowering his fellow musicians to use their platforms to create real, measurable change for people and the planet. Today, Reverb partners with some of the biggest artists in the world, including Billie Eilish, Dave Matthews Band, The Lumineers, Shawn Mendes, Jack Johnson, Harry Styles, Fleetwood Mac, Dead & Company, Maroon 5, and many more. Through Reverb's comprehensive tour sustainability programs and the organization's fan-facing activations at concerts, known as ECO or Action Villages, the organization has eliminated over 280,000 tons of CO2, prevented the use of 4+ million single-use plastic water bottles at concerts, supported more than 2,000 family farmers and 4,000 nonprofits, funded over 120 global carbon-fighting projects, and much, much more. Last year, Reverb amplified its mission with a new campaign called Music Climate Revolution, calling on all within the music industry, from musicians, fans, and record labels to venues and industry leaders, to unite in the fight against the climate crisis. He knows better than anyone why music and the environmental movement are a perfect marriage, and he has so much to offer fellow music creators who want to turn intentions into actions that make a difference. Here is my conversation with Reverb's Adam Gardner. Welcome, Adam Gardner, to VERSED, the ASCAP podcast. It's so wonderful to have you. I've been a big fan of Guster for many, many years. In fact, if you can indulge me for a second, just let me, paint a picture. The year was 1994. I was walking through Harvard Square with one of my best friends, and we came across this huge gathering of people on the street watching a band who I couldn't quite see right away. But then as I got closer, I saw you and Ryan and Brian doing your thing and just knocking it out of the park. And I was blown away from the very first time I ever saw you guys. And I've just been a huge admirer of not only your music and how you've developed your career and your engagement with your fans, but just I feel like you guys have been just savvy businessmen from the start, and the fact that you are still going strong, more than 20 years later, is a testament to all the great talent and skills that you guys have collectively. So kudos to you guys.
Hold on, I want to say thank you. That's very nice of you to say that. And 1994, geez, you're like, that's old school. You're talking about when we were busking in the streets, because we weren't really at the club level yet. We were just kind of working it out, just busking in Harvard Square. That's wild.
Yeah, I was there, and it was just, it was a confluence of. In fact, I think I went up and introduced myself because I had just started working at ASCAP at the time, and you guys were like, "What's ASCAP?" And, one thing led to another. You got connected with Sue Devine, one of our membership reps, and you had a great relationship with her over the years. So 10 years into your run with Guster, you guys kept building your fan base. You kept on increasing your reach around America, and then, you decided to launch this organization with your wife, Lauren. So maybe tell me a little bit about the impetus, the inspiration at that time in launching an organization with such lofty goals.
Yeah, so my wife, Lauren, and I met shortly after I met the guys in Guster. So we've been, the band's now, almost 30 years. Or I guess maybe we're at 30 years. Geez, I guess it depends on where you start the count. And my wife and I have been together almost as long. And she's been in the environmental world as long as I've been in the music world. So for her, she was, at the time, I think she was working for Rainforest Action Network in the Bay Area. And there were musicians involved like Bonnie Raitt and Dave Matthews that were, supporting their campaigns and causes. And Lauren had always noted like, wow, when a musician gets involved with our efforts, it really brings tons of attention and support to it. And she was always more of a mainstream pop oriented music listener, and I think just consumer of all entertainment, especially relative to her peers in the environmental movement, which, at the time, the environmental movement was pretty insular. It was, the perception from the outside world of the environmental movement was it was a hippie crunchy sort of thing. And that was it. Like the idea of sustainability or doing something to protect the planet wasn't a mainstream thing in the late 90s, really, and certainly not within music. So while she was having these thoughts of, gosh, the environmental movement is kind of standing in a circle, all nodding their heads in agreement with each other, but not reaching outside of their circle. While she was feeling that way in her world, I was, opening up for bands like Maroon 5 and John Mayer and Dave Matthews Band with Guster. And all of us were in a circle, shrugging our shoulders, going, gosh, it's too bad what we do is so negatively impacting the environment. So we have these two circles from, one all agreeing with each other, one just shrugging their shoulders. And I think I came back from tour one too many times and complained to Lauren about like just what a mess it was out there, all the plastic on the ground, how our tour bus generators constantly running. The band joked about the bus and called it the Earth Eater because we felt terribly about our impact on tour. And anybody who goes to a concert, all they have to do is look at their feet at the end of the night to see all the trash on the ground, to know that it's such a disposable industry. So really Reverb kind of came out of those two desires from Lauren and in the environmental world wanting to reach the mainstream, and me within the music world going, God, I wish our business was better on the planet. And so it was a literal and figurative marriage of Lauren and I and the needs that we saw and the voids that we saw in each of our worlds. So it really literally brought together the environmental movement and the music community. And so the first tours we worked with in 2004, Bare Naked Ladies and Alanis Morissette did a co-headlining tour where they both were on the peak of their touring careers, playing 20,000 person venues. And because we had been opening up for them, and I knew they were one of those bands that were also feeling badly about their impact, they let us try it on their tour, and it instantly worked. The fans responded incredibly well to it. So it was this combination of how do we cross the chasm between actions and intentions on the tour to make the tour more sustainable, and how do we use this incredible platform when you're bringing together 20,000 people to support local, national, and global environmental organizations and campaigns, and turn music fans onto them and have them plug into their own community organizations and campaigns that go beyond their community.
Right. In terms of, reducing your footprint while on tour, what were the biggest challenges at the time? Like, were there resources that were readily available for you to tap into, or was it something you had to kind of like really dig into it to find out, like, how can we lessen this impact?
I mean, God, if you're talking about those early years, it was, venues weren't even recycling. Not even, still some venues, it's a challenge for it to consistently happen when you go on tour across the tour, but this was like non-existent in most places. So on those early tours, we even had fan volunteers. Like, we would collect the recyclables backstage and have our fan volunteers take it home for them to put in their own recycling streams at home. Obviously it's come a long way from then, but it was really it was non-existent. The infrastructure was not there at all. So a lot of what we were doing in those early years was sort of despite what venues weren't, or what municipalities didn't have available either. And we're still doing that, but just at higher levels now today. Right.
What were the first real signs that Reverb was making a positive impact as you envisioned it could?
Honestly, right away. I mean, that first tour was the test run, right? Like, all right, how's this going to go? Do the bands care? Do the fans care? Does it benefit the local nonprofits that we bring out there in our eco village? So we set up, as far as the nonprofit support and the fan engagement piece, we set up an eco village in the front of house concourse where we're hosting the local nonprofit groups, but we give them a good infrastructure so they're not just showing up with like a cardboard sign with Sharpie on it saying sign our clipboard. It's more engaging, more we can help them with fan engagement pieces and making it fun and incentivizing it. Fans can win upgraded tickets, or they can win a signed merch or guitar or whatever it is that we can get from the artists to make it interesting. And we also connect it to the artist. So it's not like they're, we didn't invent the idea of nonprofits coming to table at concerts,
right?
But I think we helped formalize it, make it more professional and more enticing to fans, and connecting it directly to the artist. So it's a clear part of the artist tour and concert experience, and isn't just like this random third party. It's not like, a credit card company being like, hey, sign up for a credit card. Sometimes Right. It felt like that in the early days of organizations tabling. So like making it very clear that like, hey, Dave Matthews Band, this is the Dave Matthews Band Eco Village. All these groups that are here tonight were invited specifically by the band. They're here because we want you to plug in.
Right.
It's not there to be a buzzkill. It's there to be like a fun, positive experience. Like, hey, you can make a difference while you're out here milling about before the show starts.
Right. So, all these years later, you've come a long way. Reverb has really, just established itself in the industry itself. I mean, you're working with some of the biggest artists in the world now, from Billie Eilish, Lorde, Tame Impala, Pink, the 1975. So when an artist like that comes to Reverb, how do you coordinate with them what they want and what they can achieve if everything is done correctly the way you advise it to?
Yeah, I mean, especially when we start off with a new relationship with an artist, and our philosophy is always meeting folks where they're at, whether that's a fan or a tour manager or a band. What are their goals? Where are they at? So a Billie Eilish, their team was all in, and same thing with Lorde, for example. So and My Morning Jacket, same. Like they're like, let's do everything. Let's do as much as we can.
Right.
And then we go, okay, well, this is what this can look like. And, and we start we really create the program based on desires and there's some parameters built into the size of the venues you're playing, what your routing looks like, etc. But generally, we just go right through it all and go, all right, so are you guys willing to, for example, ditch single-use plastic water bottles altogether? Can we do that? All right, Fleetwood Mac's, have the same crew for decades. Like, can we culturally make that shift, or are we gonna have to do it gradually? Like, where are you at? What do you think is gonna happen? And obviously, sometimes we discover that people are willing to change faster, or no, there's more difficulty getting rid of those red Solo cups, or whatever it is, and we just keep working at it. But generally, there's just a laundry list of items that can be done. It helps that we fold our own touring staff into the crew, right. So there's some, and that was a big piece of the success, especially early on, was everyone has a job to do out on the road. That's why there was such a disconnect, and still is such a disconnect between actions and intentions. So to have a crew member dedicated to just making sure all of these things happen on the ground, and having our team, here in Portland, Maine, advance all that with the venues, create all the programs, plug into the networks we have of local farmers to come pick up the leftover food scraps to compost or to donate that to local food banks, etc. Like, to have all those networks in place and all the tour stops is huge. So they're not reinventing the wheel or trying to, someone's trying to take on an extra job when they already have their plate full. So that's been huge, to have someone dedicated on the ground handling all that stuff while we're advancing all of it and plugging into the networks we have across the country, and now we're building globally.
Right.
And also starting early with resources like, hey, have you, what's your merch company? What are you selling out there? Have you thought about these alternatives? Just looking at every piece of the live business and saying, well, what can we do? Hey, does your, when biodiesel was more prevalent, and that's a whole other story, we did a lot of work with the bus companies and truck companies to allow us to wet hose biofuel. Like we would actually have tankers come to the venue and fill everybody up with bio-based fuel made from waste vegetable oil, typically. So yeah, just all those networks in place, working with all the different pieces of the puzzle. Here's some making suggestions about, what hotels might be more eco-friendly. Like every piece of it and every piece that's related to it that we can possibly get our hands on, we get our hands on and get involved in.
Right. So, one visit to your website, there are so many campaigns that you guys have your hand in. What are some of the projects that you're most proud of that Reverb has been involved in for a number of years now?
There's been an interesting one that happened about a decade ago that really showed the power of bringing artists together. We've done a lot of work working with artists individually on their tours and their needs, even looking at their records and working with their record companies, all that stuff. But they're all working in isolation. And there was one campaign that we started a decade ago and are still running called No More Bloodwood. And it was about illegal logging and how musical instruments, unfortunately, and honestly, all wood products, but musical instruments included, were playing a role in the demand for rare tone woods that may or may not be coming from legal sources globally.
Right.
So there's a big issue there. And we were able to use the collective power of the artists that we've been working with, because at that point it was a decade into Reverb's existence as well. I testified to Congress because there was a law that was going to be gutted that does a good job of protecting the import of illegal timber, right, and protecting old growth forests, which ultimately is what matters, is making sure that we have these 100-year-old trees still standing and absorbing carbon the way that they do so beautifully.
Right.
And we stopped the Congress in its tracks. They were going to gut this bill. It was a time of the Tea Party was kind of reaching its power,
right,
and we were able to stop them in their tracks because we represented millions of fans. And I made it all too clear when I was testifying to Congress that this isn't just me talking. I'm representing, and I listed off all the artists that said we're not buying another musical instrument without knowing that it's coming from a legal resource, and we support the law that exists right now, and we want to keep it strong. And it stands strong to this day and is being enforced. We even talked to Fish and Wildlife Services, who enforces that law. It's called the Lacey Act, and actually thanked them for doing so and continuing to do so and encouraging them. So using that collective power has been really incredible. And that we translated that to a campaign that we recently started during COVID last June called the Music Climate Revolution.
Yeah.
And so bringing together artists, but also various leaders within the music industry. So venues like Forest Hill Stadium, agencies like UTA, record labels like Warner Music Nashville. So gathering the leading lights in different sectors of the music industry who have been, for in some cases for a long, long time, making incredible strides, but now rallying their peers to join all of us, because I think finally one of the benefits of this pause in live music and COVID in general is that people had a moment to be reflective about it all, about their impacts and how important climate change and the climate crisis that we're in is.
Right. Yeah, I'm proud to say that ASCAP, we launched this employee-driven initiative this past year called Studio Green at ASCAP, in which, we're doing what we can to just sort of empower, ASCAP employees to make changes at home or at work that can make an impact, however small. But I think as Reverb, so eloquently, puts forth in their mission, it's just if enough people do something, then change can happen. So, what do you see as sort of like, what's the next step for getting more organizations and companies in the music industry to sort of kind of coalesce around this, this common mission?
I think it's showing success. I think people understand that the good news is that, when we were first starting, it was a lot of pushing and nudging and convincing people that something needs to be done. I think, there will always need that, there'll always be a need for nudging, but I think there's a much bigger portion of the music community now realizing like, okay, I don't need to be convinced. I get this is a problem, but now what do I do to solve it? And how do I do this? And, even as an individual music fan, like what can one person do to possibly tackle such a huge global crisis? And so I'm just pulling up some immediate stats so again, we launched Music Climate Revolution in June. We have some impact stats back from just the first 180 days of the campaign. We raised over $3 million to fund diverse global projects that directly eliminate greenhouse gas pollution, so we can actually measure it by the ton, but also having an environmental justice component to it as well, making sure we're lifting up the communities that have been most negatively impacted by the climate crisis, but are actually contributing the least to it, but getting hurt the most by it. So that eliminated just, again, the first 180 days, 50,000 tons of CO2.
That's amazing.
Which adds to Reverb's total right now. We're up near 300,000 tons. We started this concept of climate positive touring. The first climate positive tour, as far as we know, the world's first climate positive tour was the Lumineers right before COVID in 2020 that we did with them. And what that means is, we do all the things that we do, that laundry list that I started to go, I just scratched the surface of all the things we do to reduce the environmental footprint in the first place. But then inevitably there's a footprint left, and measuring those emissions and going beyond neutral into climate positivity, where we're drawing down significantly more greenhouse gas pollution than the tour creates. So the Lumineers have done that. Dead & Company's done that. Dave Matthews Band, Harry Styles, My Morning Jacket, Sleater-Kinney and Wilco. Guster did that for our Red Rock show in July, and some smaller bands too, like Wild Rivers, have done that as well. So it's exciting. Billie's tour is climate positive. Billie Eilish. So we're trying to set the standard of, we need to reduce everything we can. Of course, we want to make sure that we can cut our emissions. It is down to zero if at all possible. But until we can. Until technology catches up to that point, we're not going to get there all the way. So what can we do to make up the difference? So it's not about buying our way out of our footprints. It's about shrinking as much as we possibly can, and then acknowledging that there still is a significant footprint, and how do we at least neutralize that and ideally make it even better, where we're making it far more, where having a tour can actually be a positive thing for the environment. Dave Matthews Band planted 2 million trees as a result of their last tour. So it's that sort of thing. How can we start to look at music and the opportunity that the industry has as a whole to not only replace their divots, so to speak, but to be a positive force that can be restorative and healing, and shift our culture in general in this country and elsewhere, and mindset and actions toward a more sustainable way of being in everything we do. And music is in a very unique position to lead the way in some areas, and live music in a concert is such an incredible opportunity to be a living, breathing example. It's really powerful as a musician. I can stand on stage and say, hey, tonight's show is supporting a local grassland project here in Colorado, and we're at Red Rocks, and we did a tree planting community service project with fans the day of the show, and we had local groups out in the village where fans are plugging in and volunteering with them, and just leaving this wake of positivity and goodness that is cultural and also measurable. Like it has to be both. Like we have to actually look and go, yep, all right, wow, like the footprint of this concert was significant. And how do we, especially for the Red Rock show for Guster, that was a one-off in the middle of us not touring because of COVID. People flew out to it, and that's a big footprint when you get in a plane,
right?
And acknowledging that, and so it's really interesting just to see. I think I'm very excited about the Music Climate Revolution campaign because it's had such immediate impact already, both measurably and culturally, and seeing how we're gathering all these like minds, sharing best practices, making sure that, people aren't operating in as islands, and that we can actually work together, because we've seen that success. We've seen the power of coming together.
Right. So, a band like Guster and Dave Matthews Band, they have a large fan base. They have a little bit more power in terms of activating the energy of their fans. What sort of practical advice could you give to like younger bands that are hitting the road, that may not have a large following yet, but they want to sort of like start out on the right foot?
Yeah, so as part of the Music Climate Revolution campaign, we actually created an online resource. So there's Green Rider examples and language. There's resources for different merchandise companies we recommend you use. Just tips on how you can ditch disposables. All those sorts of things are there. So if you go to musicclimaterevolution.org and take action, it'll bring you to a page where there's various portals. Are you a fan? Cool. Here's what you can do as a fan. Are you an artist on tour? Here's what you can do. Are you a record label? Here's what you can do. Are you a studio or radio station? Here's what you can do. So there's different areas of resources there. So I'd say go there first and foremost, because everything I'm about to say is there.
That's great. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So, one of the developments in music in recent years is so many bands are presenting and curating their own festivals now. Grace Potter's got Grand Points North in Burlington, Vermont. Bon Iver has Eau Claire's in Wisconsin. And of course, Guster has Guster on the Ocean, returning this summer, thankfully, to Portland, Maine. What's the benefit of putting on an event like that in your local community? Like, what does it afford you as a band to be able to do that you just can't do when you're on the road and away from home?
Yeah, I mean, for this, when it's a weekend event, then we can start adding in more significant pieces to the puzzle. So, every year we've done this. Reverb has a service project that we do with the fans, and we, whether it's restoring a trail or cleaning up a park or whatever it is, we're able to, because we can afford to have the time to do that, because it's a weekend event and not just a one evening deal. So that's been great. And it's been awesome to plug into the local businesses and organizations there and here to support it and make sure that we're, leaving behind a positive wake. And obviously it feels great to do it in my own hometown where I live here in Portland, and feel more connected to that community and to our region. So that's been lovely. And to celebrate it, we did a kayaking trip with fans, in Casco Bay, and played a little private acoustic show off a pier on an island there that we kayaked to. Just fun ways of connecting to nature. This year we're doing Camp Guster on the Sunday after our outdoor show at Thompson's Point, where we're doing a little day camp at a Maine camp where the waterfront will be open, and we'll be, enjoying everything that Maine has to offer in August, which is so much. It's I feel so lucky to live in a place like this.
Will there be 3-legged races?
Maybe. Yeah, exactly. You have to put your head on a baseball bat and spin 3 times and carry an egg on a spoon. Yeah. I don't know if we'll be doing field day activities as much as we'll do some canoeing and kayaking. I bet you we'll do some of those field games as well. But and we'll do a campfire acoustic set, and it'll be, I think what I love about it is you can slow down. You can have that time to connect with fans. And obviously from an environmental perspective, we have more control over the situation. So obviously we'll have a Reverb Eco Village there. We'll be offering free, it's not unusual for a festival to offer free drinking water, but on tour we do that too with our artists, which is unusual. And encouraging fans to bring their own reusables, because those single-use plastic water bottles are that is the mess that you were wading through on the way out the door. So it is, I'm really excited about it. It's, we had to take a pause because of COVID, so it'll be nice to bring that back.
Yeah. So the news has been so dire lately, but music always has a way of lifting spirits and saving the day. You guys are finishing up the recording of a new album. You've got Guster on the Ocean coming up. What else are you most hopeful and excited about that's happening with you guys this year?
Well, on a Guster level, I love the symphony shows, and so that Red Rock show we did last July was with the Colorado Symphony. We're doing a few more this summer, and it's just always such a unique and special experience. So I'm really looking forward to that on the musical side. We also have we've recorded some music, and we're going to record some more. So I'm looking forward to getting back into the studio as well. And I think we're going to be recording at a studio that's also part of the Music Climate Revolution that is a beautiful space called Guilford Sound in New England here. And it's super sustainable as well. So they're doing all the right things there, which is exciting to see. And I hope we get to record there because that's our goal, that's our plan. And then on the Reverb side, again, the Music Climate Revolution is really exciting. There's a number of tours that are happening now and we're launching in the coming months this summer that the artists are all part of. So it's just exciting to see the collective impact and not just show Harry Style fans what they were able to accomplish on that one tour, but to say, look what all the artists that are part of this and all the fans that have taken action at their shows have accomplished together. And it's really exciting. I think it's a really important thing to show those successes so it inspires others to go, okay, wait, we can move the needle here. Great. I can have hope, because I think that's a big important role that musicians can play, is to instill that hope, but not in a false way, in a very real way, saying, well, look, here's what we're doing. Our tour is climate positive. Here's what you were able to make happen just by taking action in the eco village, or here's how many trees we were able to plant by you buying a ticket, or whatever it is.
Right.
That's really exciting, and there's some projects that we've been able to support that, bring clean drinking water to communities that have to boil it or carry it miles to bring back to their communities. There's this cool project that we've supported through a number of tours called Solidarity, where they're putting up solar powered streetlights in a community outside of Detroit they had their streetlights repossessed by their local utility. For the past 10 years, they've been in the dark and it's not safe. And obviously to bring back something like as simple and basic as lights on the street, but have them be solar powered so they're not absorbing, from the grid, and Wi-Fi enabled. So now there's also free access to the internet in a community that otherwise didn't have it. It feels really good to see all of this collective impact. And feeling the tipping point that I think we've reached in the music community, where everyone now is realizing it's past time to take action and do something real.
We've talked a lot about sustainability. To sustain a music career, especially, a band for almost 30 years, takes a certain combination of factors. What is it about you and Ryan and Brian? How have you been able to sustain what you do for so long? Like, what is it that kind of keeps you guys invested in making music together?
Well, I think first and foremost, we still enjoy it. We like going on tour. We like seeing each other. I think we've struck a nice balance in our adult lives. I mean, obviously we've been doing this since we were kids. Mm-hmm. So now we have families and spouses. And I think we've found a nice balance in our lives. And so when we do get together to tour, we're excited to, and we're happy to see each other. Every time we get together to write, we always have more ideas and songs we're excited about, which probably actually that's I would say that's the primary piece. I think if we got together and what we were creating was no longer interesting or exciting to us, that would probably be the end, because at some point you get tired of, playing the same old stuff. I don't mind playing our older material when I know we have new material I'm excited to play as well. Right. And I think I speak for everybody that if we, I think that's the lifeblood of our band, is that every time we get together to write, we all live in different places. So we don't do it all the time, but when we do, I always leave completely energized and excited about the band and the music we're creating.
Great. Well, thank you, Adam. I really appreciate you taking the time. It's great to reconnect with you. As I said, I have nothing but respect for what you guys have achieved, both musically, but also with being able to take your music and to turn it into something that really makes a difference in the life of our planet is a huge thing. So, kudos to you and to Lauren and to your entire team. I mean, it looks like you have a really great group of people working on this with you. So keep up the great work.
Thanks, Eric. I appreciate it. And thanks for talking today. And I'm glad to hear that ASCAP is taking their own initiatives on as well, which is incredible. For anyone who's listening and, again, wants to know where to begin or how to go deeper, go to musicclimaterevolution.org or go to reverb.org as well. And there's resources there for you to take it on yourself, or if you want to go deeper and want some help. That's what Reverb was created to do.
Wise words. All right, man. Take care.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good to see you.
Love that guy. How could you not? Once again, if you want to learn more and find out how you can do more, visit reverb.org and musicclimaterevolution.org. The ASCAP experience is back for another year of inspiring and educational conversations with some of today's top music creators and industry experts. Watch Sessions on Demand and RSVP for future sessions at ascapexperience.com. You'll be glad you did. Thanks to everyone who made this episode possible, especially Adam Gardner and the folks at Reverb. Big shout-outs to Sarah Feingold and Eitan Rosenblum for editorial support, Tiffany Sims for graphic design, Kate Cordova for social media magic, MXM Tune, Rosaline Scher, and Kellen Pomeranz for our uplifting new theme music, and Benjamin Keynes of Sight Sense Productions for audio and video editing. If you like what you hear on Versed, tell your friends. Comment on our YouTube channel and share the podcast to help spread the word and grow our community. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll catch up with you again real soon.